The graduation hall smelled faintly like floor polish and damp clothing. Folding chairs scraped against the gym floor while families stood too early, already applauding names that hadn't been called yet. Evan sat between two students taking selfies with their caps tilted sideways. He remembered almost none of the speeches afterward. Only fragments survived, heat trapped under the gown, his mother dabbing at her eyes, the weight of the diploma cover in his hand, and his father leaning close enough for only him to hear. "You'll never amount to anything," not angry, not whispered with venom. Worse than that, certain. Then his father straightened and joined the applause as Evan crossed the stage. For years afterward, Evan replayed the tone more than the words. It had sounded tired, final, like a man commenting on a road already washed out. He never confronted him about it, at first because he couldn't, later because he didn't know what confrontation was supposed to accomplish. Life moved anyway. Cheap apartment, community college at night, deliveries during the day, a stretch where he slept 4 hours at a time and kept forgetting whether he'd eaten dinner. His father called occasionally, usually with practical questions. "Your aunt's internet stopped working. Your mother says you changed banks. You should think about getting a real career." The conversations had the emotional texture of customer service calls. Somewhere along the line, Evan became good at being dependable. Not charismatic, not brilliant, just difficult to rattle. At 28, he was hired by a regional logistics company nobody outside the industry had heard of. The work was dull until it wasn't. Delays, contracts, compliance issues, staffing shortages. Entire warehouses could unravel because someone forgot a signature. Other people panicked visibly. Evan didn't. Managers noticed. A director named Marianne started pulling him into meetings usually reserved for older employees. At first he thought she needed someone to take notes. Then one afternoon, halfway through a tense staffing review, she stopped talking mid-sentence and looked toward him instead. "What's your recommendation?" The room turned slightly. It was the first time authority had ever arrived in his life without raising its voice. After that, things changed carefully. Better title, better apartment, fewer overdue notices taped to his door. He learned how to speak in rooms where nobody interrupted him anymore. His father remained mostly the same, too proud to stay at jobs long enough to adapt, too convinced experience alone guaranteed respect. He left a warehouse supervisor role after an argument with management, and spent months insisting he'd find something better. Then 6 months passed, then 8. The call came on a Thursday night while Evan was reheating leftover rice in his kitchen. He stared at the screen before answering. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4. He picked up on the 5th. "Hey," his father said. His voice sounded thinner somehow. Evan lowered the microwave door quietly. "Hey." A pause settled between them. Then finally, "Your company hiring?" No explanation attached, no pride left for one. Evan sat down slowly at the counter. "We might be," he said. "You think you could? Ask around?" "Not can you get me a job. Just ask around." Evan looked at the dark kitchen window above the sink. His reflection looked older than he expected. "I can send your resume to HR." Another pause. "Okay." Neither of them mentioned the sentence from graduation. It sat invisibly between every word anyway. The interview happened 3 weeks later. Evan almost didn't attend the preliminary meeting, but Marianne insisted. "You referred him," she said. "Be there." His father arrived in a suit slightly too large through the shoulders. He looked uncomfortable under the office lighting, as if corporate spaces required a language he only partly understood. The strange part wasn't seeing his father nervous. It was seeing other people look to Evan first. A younger department director walked in carrying a folder and nodded toward him. "Evan, glad you could make it." Then, after a brief handshake with his father, "He says you got strong floor management experience. Not son, not family. He says, professional, neutral, real." Something shifted visibly in his father's face then. Not humiliation, recognition. For the first time, Evan occupied terrain his father couldn't dismiss with a sentence. The interview remained polite, controlled. Questions about scheduling software, safety procedures, conflict management. At one point, Evan noticed his father glance toward him before answering, as though checking whether he sounded credible. That hurt more than expected. Afterward, Evan skipped the final evaluation meeting intentionally. He understood himself well enough to know power could become addictive if you lingered near it too long. His father received a 6-month operations contract. Not prestigious. Not humiliating either. Just work. A beginning late in life. The first paycheck cleared on a Monday morning. That evening, Evan received a text. Got paid today. Thank you. No period at the end. He stared at the message for a long time before locking the phone again. Months later, his father visited headquarters briefly to sign renewal paperwork. Evan walked him toward the elevators afterward. Employees passed by greeting Evan casually. Morning. Need that report later. See you in the meeting. His father stayed quiet through all of it. At the elevator doors, he hesitated, like he might finally say something larger than either of them knew how to handle. Instead, he adjusted his coat sleeve and asked, "Parking gets validated downstairs?" "Yeah," Evan said softly. "Front desk does it." The elevator arrived. His father nodded once and stepped inside. Evan watched the doors close slowly across his reflection and realized success had done something strange. It hadn't erased the sentence. It had simply forced both of them to keep living beyond it.